Nice to read that again, by the way. It's been a while. Well done.
Yeah, I know. And you know, I got to tell you something. Like this is one thing that I really like. Look, I'm not doing rocket surgery or anything like that. I don't really have an important job. But if I'm going to do that blog, I want to do it properly. And it's just, there's like, I get a bunch of people, whenever I write it, they're always like, I really like this better than the podcast. I understand. It's just, I want to do it right. And it's tough to find the time. I have to do better at finding the time. So like the thing is when players and teams, like there were reports this week that Nyes and the Maple Leafs were far off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think that's two sides putting a stake in the ground, and you just have to weave your way to the middle, right?
Sure.
This one is different. This is one of those things when, you know, you have a player and a team that know each other really well. I think
and this is
generally
Rasmus Andersson we're talking about here.
Yes, Rasmus Andersson. Like the player knows what he's worth. The team knows what he's worth. I think, you know, you should never negotiate against yourself. You should always put down like a number slightly higher than you may think you get, and teams often will put a number slightly lower than they think you get. Like it's rare that two sides walk in a negotiation and they're like, "Oh, I'm at 8. You're at 8. Oh, wow, we've got a done deal." It doesn't usually work like that. I just heard, I don't know what the numbers were here, but I heard they were so far apart that it was like when it kind of got around the league, a couple people said to me, it's just, that's when you know it's time, right? Because the number comes to you, to Calgary, and you just kind of know, okay, this number means more than just the contract. And I think Anderson feels it's time. And I think Calgary understands that. Like, I don't think there's any hard feelings here. Like, it's the same thing like in Edmonton. I think Arvidsson and the Oilers, they're like, it's time. Nobody's knifing anyone else on the way out. Like, the Oilers aren't going to say anything bad about Arvidsson. I don't think Arvidsson's going to say anything bad about the Oilers. It just didn't work. It's time to move on. And I think that's kind of the thing with Anderson here. They've been together for a long time, and I don't think he's got anything bad to say about Calgary. I don't think they've got anything bad to say about him, but you get to the point where it's time. And I think everybody in the league sees that. I think Calgary sees that. I don't know if it's been communicated to them in so many words, but you reach a point where everyone kind of recognizes for a player, it's time. And it's hit there for Calgary, and it's hit there for Anderson. He's been a really good player for them. He turned out to be a great draft pick and a really good Calgary Flame. Again, I don't think anyone here has anything bad to say about anyone else, but it's time for something new for him. And I think at the very least, you know, I'll say this: if you're the Flames, you're probably hoping Ekblad signs, because I still think you're going to be able to do well regardless. Mm-hmm. But now you're really going to be able to do well if Ekblad's off the board.
Right, one less guy, and so that's why I thought about, because he's still got one more year left on his deal. Anderson does. So with that in mind, I mean, will it ultimately be the offers that Craig Conroy gets? I mean, that could largely dictate whether something happens this summer, or is there still a chance that they could begin training camp and he's still a member of the Flames going into the last year?
I think in theory that could happen, Kyle. All I can say is that I heard people were serious.
Okay.
Like, I don't think, like, this is your best chance to make your team better, right? And I'll tell you what one team said to me. They said that, you know, everybody's trying to sell tickets. Everyone wants to sell hope. Everyone wants to make their team better. You don't want to be, if you really believe that Anderson can help you, you don't want to be the person who didn't get him because you were fooling around, right? So, I mean, I don't know what I would say the percentage is, but I've heard there's legit interest. One of the teams said to me, someone's going to be very serious about this. So a few of us should be.
Got it. Right. And the Flames do have Brustowitz, Perek coming, right? A couple of right shot defensemen. So they've got the next wave coming on their back end there for sure, if this is it for Rasmus Andersson and the Flames. I went back and watched his end of season media, Andersson's. It was really interesting. And he just said, this is probably the first time in his career he's had a real big decision to make.
He's a great talker. I have to say that about him. I've always really liked talking to him. He's honest. He's blunt. From the limited amount I've gotten to speak to him, I find him a really interesting and fascinating guy. And it sounds like he's made the decision. All right.
North of Calgary.
Speaking of funny texts and stuff like that. Yeah. So I called, I reached out to Ryan Leslie and Eric Francis just to let them know I was going to be reporting that. And, so Leslie's out and he gives me a shout. And Eric texts me, he goes, "I'm just on the bullet train in Japan. What's up?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I just sent him a note. This is what I'm working on."
Exactly.
You don't need to talk to me. Enjoy the bullet train.
Oh, great. Well, it's good he's enjoying some downtime.
Yeah,
Eric,
he's a good guy. Yeah, Eric,
that's funny. All right, so north of Calgary then in Edmonton, you mentioned Arvidsson. What else do you think's kind of the Oilers are deciding, at least in the short term, about some guys?
Yeah, so like I said, I think Arvidsson, it was interesting. They talked about the D is pretty good and the goaltending. I think they're starting to meet this week to go over some of their plans. But I do think, like I said, I think they're going to work on a solution for Arvidsson. Like, he has control, but I think he's going to work with them. I think the other one there that's going to be interesting is what's Bouchard's. Like, we've all talked about McDavid. We don't need to talk about it anymore. We'll see what that is. I think what Bouchard's deal is going to look like is a really interesting one because his ARB case is so massive, right?
Yeah.
So, like someone was saying to me, like, even if you want to sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, if you want to do that, the number is still probably $10 million.
Right.
So, so I think it's going to be really fascinating to see what they do there. I think obviously the biggest question is in goal. Like, the best goalie available on the free agent market is Jake Allen. I don't know that, that's what they're going to do, but at the very least, it's clear they're going to be looking into the trade market there. I think that's one of the things that they kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the things they kind of go over with some of their, like, they've admitted they talked to some of their top players about it, right? Like, what do you guys think? And I wouldn't be surprised if they go to some of those guys and say, look, if we could, like, we're not getting Connor Hellebuck, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they go over some of their players, some of their options, and say, here's what we could do, and what do you like?
Because I can remember Ken Holland at the time when Bouchard was due the current contract, the 2-year deal that's about to expire, just because of their cap situation. Then it was like it had to be a bridge. It's gonna have to be a bridge to keep the AAV down. And I guess even if you go short term with them now to try to figure some things out in the meantime, that's still going to be a big number.
Yeah,
like I keep the AAV down anymore
because he's got his arbitration is like right near there, right? So like, it's whether you're going long or short term, it's a massive number. I also do think there's a decent chance Kapanen stays.
Okay,
like he found kind of a home there. There's a spot for him there. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays.